Доброго дня, шановні колеги. Розпочинаємо серію.
We're starting a series of press briefings at Ukraine Crisis Media Center. We'd like to start with Pavlo Zhebrivskyi, former member of Ukrainian Parliament of several Ukrainian parliaments, and now Sergeant Major of a Special Intelligence Battalion. And we are going to talk to Pavlo Zhebrivskyi, discussing the following topic: how to resolve conflict in Eastern Europe, personal experience after a month of military service in ATO zone. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, dear colleagues. I've had a concussion, cannot hear things well, but I appeared in ATO area on the 26th of August. There's Shest in Debaltsevo airport, and our unit is deployed at Debaltsevo. And 2 days ago, I came back for a short leave. On the 16th, I am coming back. I'm not going to tell you about challenges. There are plenty of them. I would like to thank volunteers, first of all. There are no problems with the foodstuffs. At least our battalion suffers no shortage of special thermal underwear and the winter outfit. We have no problems with weaponry also. Not high precision though, but the conventional, personnel carriers of the 80s and the small arms and all the ammunition that we have, and our battalion is provided with such machinery and equipment. My experience of talking to the people, you know that Debaltsevo is like a town. It's between Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic, so-called, 12 kilometers in width, and different formations on both sides. When you enter Slovyansk, that was for a long time under the People's Republic, so-called, 90% of the population are pro-Ukraine. They have races of Automaidan with the Ukrainian symbols and assemblies, and the majority of people there in Artemis, closer to the Maltsiko, there are people, because about 25% are still in favor of the Donetsk People's Republics. In the shops, people approach us and say, "Don't leave us, because the mobsters will come and the terrorists will come. It will be very bad." They did not suffer much from that authority of DP Donetsk People's Republic, and they had about 100 people of garrison. In the Debaltsevo, the situation is the worst. They do not want to hear anybody, to see anyone. They say, "Leave us alone. We just want to survive." The Debaltsevo is being shelled and fired at every day. Thank God for that, but there's no shell in our area, but more than 200 residential houses are destroyed because they're shell and firing every day at the residential quarters. They just want to survive, want peace at any price, at any cost. It's not about foodstuffs. They just want peace, peace, and peace. And now, discussing the vision that they have there. Now, the front line of ceasefire. You cannot see Zakharchenko, Potnetsky, and other leaders of terrorists being prepared for peace. They have the authority. They commandeer up to 30 to 80% of all the proceeds of any business. They have the underbosses bossing around for the big ones, and the situation is such that they can never put up with any authority. They are talking about the third force, but believe me, they never had any sense. They have Kadyrov Chechens, local junkies, and some criminals, because if you enter a road post which was kept by them, we have syringes, and it's the used syringes are all around, and nobody would vote for Plotnitsky or Zakharchenko, and they will use all the authority and the force and the weapons to keep that power. For example, one of the ministers there has secondary education, and he's dealing with big issues. Of course, in normal life, he cannot be anybody, and his status is now like a drug to him. He cannot be downgraded if he can help it. And of course, it will be very difficult to have any peace, armistice in that area. First of all, OSCE monitors have to enter that area, and after some time, the Ukrainian border guards will perhaps follow them, and then step by step we can close the border, because when separatists show fire, it looks like they have to exhaust the ammunition. 48 shots from Grads, 6 shots in one line, and 6 shots in one line, and after that they repeat it after some time, unless they use all the ammunition. They have no shortage of that, and they use Grads, mortars, and Smerch units. So it's like ticking in the box. So they have this unceasing supply from the territory of the Russian Federation. Without closing the border, it will be very difficult to discuss anything like ceasefire. And there are mobilized people, there are middle-aged men like myself, there are younger men and younger people, but we can be a buffer, serve as a buffer, but President and his team have to restore the professional army. In my opinion, we have to provide rotation and raise the salaries for our military officers. It's very small what they get. In March, my battalion commander had 390 hryvnias, 3,900 hryvnias. Now they have more than 11,000, a little bit more for battalion commander. And if we seriously increase the salaries, give them a rise, they will be not just patriotic, but they will be also self-sustainable, and they will feel rewarded for their work. And the machinery should be changed, because all those old personal armed carriers of all sorts of the 70s, of the 80s, they were preserved. Some spare parts just falling apart, and they're being repaired in the field. And the third issue, when you enter Artemivsk, talk to the people, they ask you all sorts of questions, and they say, what, the police, they're still robbing us, the judiciary are still arbitrary. So even that war didn't teach them any lesson. The enforcement and the judiciary, the judicial system never changed. Traffic police officers take bribes, demand bribes, and there's no reset of enforcement there. So the situation should be normalized, where the Ukrainian forces are in control versus the temporarily occupied territories. In Artemivsk 2 weeks ago, I met some older people from Horlivka. They watch Ukrainian TV. They say we came from there. They take away things, but for drugs they execute people. For being drunk in public, they make you dig trenches, and as public works they call them. And here the enforcement, the judiciary, pretending that nothing had ever happened. And so we should reform that territory, and everything under Ukrainian control should be a token of order and lawfulness.
So summing it up, there are several issues. First, closing the border in 2 stages. The second thing is creating the real professional Ukrainian army, which will be equipped by modern armaments. And the third issue is implementing reforms in law enforcement system, in judicial system, and economic relations. And then based on that, we can ensure peace, and we can control Ukrainian territory both in Donbass and sometime later in Crimea. Thank you. Your example is a great example to follow, like a person who left everything, business, and stopped working in the parliament and went to defend our country. What we lack? We lack work with people when we are in different settlements. First thing we do, we get together 20, 30, 40, 50 people who are the most active in this village. They first talk to you with big concern. They don't believe you in the beginning, but then half an hour later, 40 minutes later, we start a normal dialogue, and when they hear what you're talking about, they start believing you. In 5-7 days, the children come to checkpoints, they get sweets, candies, and the normal life starts, and they start to be proud of Ukrainian army. And many of the children say, when I grow up, I will go to serve to the Ukrainian army. And but closer to the front line, there are no things like that happening. I believe that many people who are members of parliament, who are holding some serious positions in the civil service, these people are ready to go. And I believe we need to create such a civil servants or ex-MPs 100, people who need to go there to talk to people, not to fight, but to talk to people, because people do not understand what the special status means. They believe that they will be under Russia then. And what law are you talking about? That is a framework law. No one understands it in principle, but if on the 2nd of November there will be elections to the republics, this law will not become effective. On the 7th of November, there should be the elections held according to Ukrainian legislation. But now I believe that on the controlled by Russian mercenaries territories, they are trying to organize elections on the 2nd of November, and they want to do it in accordance with Russian legislation. In some schools on the controlled by separatist territories, they start teaching according to Russian programs. Children do not understand why and what. I remember reading your blog, and back in April this year, you gave a very correct assessment of the situation. You were saying about many things that the authorities have to do not to prevent the escalation of the conflict. We see that many of such things have not been implemented, and your forecast has become true, unfortunately. Now, what is your understanding of how will the situation in the east of Ukraine develop, and what the authorities have to do today to prevent bad negative development of this situation? Because there are many issues now. There are many issues. The fact that at the first stage, well, there are many people who are from Berkut, and they work on the side of separatists, but They are all identified as enemies, but part of them are people who were paid quite good money, and they were ready to bite whoever they are ordered to bite. But many people from Alpha group and from Berkut, they are normal people, and there should have been differentiation. Those who are guilty, they should be punished, but most of them are people who are quite decent, and now Alpha and Berkut are like four-letter words almost. And now next to us there is a battalion of the National Guards from Rivne. They are from militia, and part of them are from Berkut, and they do not understand what is lustration, whether it will also touch upon him. There's one colonel, and he says that I do not understand whether this lustration will also be something which I will suffer from, because he's fighting in the ATO zone, and many people are just very patriotic. But another time I would like to emphasize that without a highly professional Ukrainian army, no one has doubts that the ceasefire will not last more, because it's not our side, but those who have seized the power, they will become more active. But I believe that there will be escalation from their side not later than in the end of this year, and we need to create a new army by that time, because how can you assess the army today and the army in March? Now it's much better talking about equipping the army and training personnel, and these are those guys who have already been in the warfare, and now they basically do not react when someone fires machine guns. Only if the mortar launchers start shelling, then they do react, and the army is more prepared. But we need to have a professional army which has modern armaments. Without that, we will never see the success in our operations. Any questions from the audience? No questions. Then the last question from the center. You are now in the one of the hot points, because the hottest one is Donetsk airport. And I understand we cannot ask many questions to intelligence person, but what is the specific features of your work there? We're military intelligence, and there is a platoon which covers the territory up to the border of Russia, and we are like the eyes and the ears of our commandership, and we give the information about where and what is located. And there is such a place as Hostra Mogila, and after 5-7 days of being there, the guys come there, return from there, and psychological state of these guys is very bad, because they were shelled by Grad systems and other systems. And you need to be also a psychologist, because it's very difficult to survive through such a situation. We are not offending now. We stopped, and the guys are ready to go to Yanakieva and take Yanakieva, because from us to Yanakieva it's 5 and 7 kilometers, and there are not so many separatists there, but they are there, they are standing, they are shelled at, and they just shell back in response, and their psychological condition is very, very bad, and there will be that will mean a lot of work for psychologists to get such people psychologically recovered. Thank you. This is the example of a person worth following. Okay. And you will be back there. Yes, on the 16th, I am going back there. The next press briefing is in